And joining us now to discuss this and the latest from Russia and Ukraine, retired Major General for the U.S. Army National Guard John F. King and retired U.S. Army Colonel John Mills. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us here. Colonel, I'm going to start with you here. We spoke with K.T. McFarland in the last hour, and she said that the Biden administration, President Biden himself, has absolutely no plan, has no idea where this war is going and no plan as to how they want to handle it in the dwindling days ahead.
Well, thank you, Katrina. Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. I think the Congress should subpoena. I've been on the National Security Council. I'd like to see the decision memo signed by President Biden. I'd like to see the decision package and see who signed off on this. Just so many things don't make sense of escalation, and it was a very poor rollout, very poorly explained, did nothing but inflame tensions. And you got three components. You got the ATACMS missile, you got the JASSM missile, which is also air launched. You also got the landmine component. Our only stock of anti-personnel landmines is in South Korea. So this means we pulled landmines out of South Korea, leaving South Korean troops and American troops without an important deterrent capability. So this was just very, very poorly handled, whatever is going on.
Fred, why escalate? Why? Or excuse me, I'm sorry, General, why escalate?
It really makes not a whole lot of sense. You know, the most critical, the most dangerous periods of time is when it transitions between the administrations. That is when there has to be a very close coordination between both administrations, because as you can see, this is causing an incredible amount of chaos. We clearly are seeing an escalation of increased capabilities, and now obviously our troops in NATO countries, in Poland, potentially are part of this discussion. And so this is where it's really critical for having a seamless transition, especially in the national security team, and because the dangers are such. It makes not a lot of sense of why roll this out at this time instead of just waiting for the Trump administration to come in and put out clear lines of if certain things happen, we need to be predictable and clear in our messaging, and we're not hearing that now.
Colonel Mills, wouldn't this, what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, wouldn't this be very much part of the discussions between the Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration as part of, I'll say, a very delicate transition when it comes to global politics? It seems like the wool is being perhaps kept over the eyes of the incoming administration.
Well, yeah, exactly, Katrina. I mean, this is in a normal national security world, that's exactly what would be going on. In 1952, when the Democrats lost the election to Eisenhower, they didn't immediately start bombing China. No, they conducted an effective handover to Eisenhower, who in December of that year went, as promised, to Korea. And shortly the war ended. It didn't quite end, excuse me. It ended in an armistice or a ceasefire. But this just is nothing was done correctly here, and it's almost as if they are intentionally stoking it. It's the Victoria Nuland effect on the Jake Sullivan national security team.
General, the fact that Trump has communicated with both Putin and Zelensky, though, leading up to him getting into office, how much of that is a factor, and how much do those two world leaders factor or take what Biden is doing into consideration? Do they give it much credence?
Well, the problem is that the actions that have just occurred in the last 48 hours puts a lot of those discussions into lack of clarity. And if nothing else, we need absolute clarity on what those red lines are. What are the things that if the Russians do certain things will trigger an immediate and clear response? We've been all over the place on this, and the lack of clarity is very dangerous at this point.
Colonel John Mills, General John King, gentlemen, we appreciate the analysis as always. Stop back soon.
Thank you. Will do.